Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Plants and Politics. I have an update to share about one of Trump's Capitol insurrectionists. It's time for an episode of Where Are They Now?
Matthew Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So this is exciting news. The trial for 30-year-old Army reservist Timothy Hale-Cusanelli has ended. This is the January 6th defendant who proudly took pictures of himself with his hair and his mustache styled like Hitler. He even wore his Hitler-style mustache at the naval station where he worked. And according to his coworkers, he would often say things like, Hitler should have finished the job, and that Jews, women, and Blacks were on the bottom of the totem pole. However, the judge barred that type of evidence from being shared with the jury. He ruled that his love of Hitler and Nazis wasn't relevant and it might prejudice the jury. But it gives me great pleasure to announce that Cusanelli was convicted without any of that information. A jury of his peers convicted him on all counts. Again, this is the fifth one. So here's the deal. Here's what the jury heard and saw last week. Cusanelli is an avowed white supremacist. And on the first day of the trial, the prosecutor explained to the jury that when he took part in the Capitol attack, he believed that Jews were, quote, controlling President Biden. You know, it makes you wonder if this guy paid any attention to the fact that Jared Kushner controlled so much during Trump's time in office, but I digress. So in court, Cusanelli's text messages were shared with the jury, which included racial, anti-Semitic, and homosexual slurs. One of them stated, quote, minus N-word rigging, which they'll try, Trump wins. Cusanelli's attorney, however, argued that his client was just prone to hyperbole. And, you know, he entered the Capitol wearing a suit, so he couldn't have intended to do any harm. I mean, I would argue that the mafia wore suits when they murdered people in cold blood. So not really a defense. But anyway, Cusanelli's roommate agreed to act as an informant. So they had him secretly recording conversations between the two of them. And in one audio recording, Cusanelli told his roommate that January 6th was, quote, just a taste of what's to come. And Cusanelli's roommate also testified at the trial. He had to use a pseudonym, though, due to the possibility of retribution from Cusanelli's white supremacist supporters. But in further recordings that the roommate recorded, Cusanelli admitted that he was concerned about getting caught because of, quote, the 10-year felony thing. I could be labeled a domestic terrorist. He also admitted that he used hand signals while he was in the Capitol that he said could be viewed as tactical signals. And he said, quote, I know I was yelling advance a lot. And then he also claimed that he took a flagpole that someone had used to hit an officer in the head. And he told his roommate, quote, I think maybe I have a murder weapon on me. That's still in my truck. I've got to dispose of that. Then he told the roommate, quote, I can't describe how exhilarating it was, the adrenaline rush, the sense of purpose. And Cusanelli then talked about what was next, which included his desire for civil war. And he said, quote, let me tell you, if we had more people, we could have cleared that whole building. It's only a matter of time. They don't want to be the ones to fire the first shot. And then he said, quote, civil war, not that I want that, but I think it is the simplest solution, the most likely outcome, and the best shot at a clean bill of health for our society. Then later in the conversation, he told his roommate, quote, "It's not like I want to see people dead on the street. I'm not a complete sociopath, but I literally don't see a political future going forward." No, you don't want to see people dead in the street. You just want to see them in concentration camps and, being gassed to death, because this guy thinks Hitler should have finished the job. So yeah, not a total sociopath though. So he then made some statements that undermined the prosecutor's case, especially for the case of obstructing an official proceeding, because they had to prove intent with that crime. And Cusanelli was also heard in this recording saying, quote, "There was no plan to overthrow the government like they keep saying, but there will be." So that same day in court, the jurors also saw and heard more text messages that were sent by Cusanelli, and he continued to talk about civil war. In one, he wrote, quote, "Get the Civil War started already." Then the following day in court, Cusanelli actually testified on his own behalf, and that turned out to be a huge mistake that actually might increase his sentence. Cusanelli told the judge that he had no idea that Congress met in the Capitol building. In fact, Cusanelli said, quote, "I know this sounds idiotic, but I'm from New Jersey. In all my studies, I didn't know there was an actual building that was called the Capitol. It's embarrassing and idiotic." This, by the way, was after he testified earlier in the day, and he claimed to have, quote, "pretty extensive knowledge about the whole electoral vote certification process." And then that was also after Cusanelli admitted to attending Trump's rally, and he confirmed that he heard Trump direct everyone to head to the Capitol to, quote, "cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women." The prosecutor used all of this against him in court, and they showed a video of Cusanelli waving for other insurrectionists to join him to enter the visitor center at the Capitol. And the prosecutor also showed evidence that Cusanelli had moved a bike rack to gain access to the Capitol. And they showed a video of him attempting to stop an officer from arresting another member of Trump's mob. Cusanelli's attorney continued to try to defend this. He maintained that his client is just a loudmouth. He called him a, quote, "juvenile." He even went so far as to tell jurors, quote, "It was a temper tantrum, for crying out loud." He's simplistic in his thought processes. He doesn't think more than maybe 10 seconds in front of him, and then he reacts. And Cusanelli then dropped a bombshell. He admitted under oath that he's half Jewish and half Puerto Rican. So he's another self-loathing Candace Owens, Milo Yiannopoulos kind of character, Trump minion. They just want so badly to be accepted by the bigots of the world that they're literally willing to throw their own under the Trump train. It's so sad and so pathetic. But anyway, back to the trial. So the jury didn't buy this ignorance defense that Cusanelli tried, and they convicted him, as I said, on all 5 counts, which are obstructing an official proceeding, entering a restricted building or grounds, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, and parading or demonstrating in a Capitol. U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden is presiding over this case. You guys know I've been very critical of his handling of these January 6 cases, but I'm actually going to give him some rare praise here. First of all, I credit McFadden with keeping Cusanelli in jail since he was arrested last year. He believed that Cusanelli posed a risk to the community, and that was based on the evidence collected, which, by the way, included 34 statements from colleagues, from people he worked with, who said, all of them, that he held, quote, "extremist or radical views pertaining to Jewish people, minorities, and women." The other thing I'm going to give McFadden credit for is that he's considering increasing Cusanelli's sentence because he found his testimony to be, quote, "highly dubious." Cusanelli is going to be scheduled on September 16th. I'm really hoping that Judge McFadden will sentence him to at least the same amount of time as Paul Hodgkins. He's the guy, you may remember, he had long dark hair. He pleaded guilty to obstructing an official proceeding, and he received 8 months in jail and then 2 years of probation. Given that Cusanelli didn't agree to a cooperation deal as the other guy did, and he was convicted on all counts, and he appears to have lied under oath, it would be a complete travesty to give him a lesser sentence than Hodgkins. But we'll see. All right, guys, I'll keep you posted. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.